Hi, I'm Matt from HockeyReviews.ca, and here we have a ton of Warrior gloves. But this one specifically is us going to be looking at the Warrior Alpha LX Pro gloves. So this will be a snapshot review. I bought these from a store. I'm going to return them, so I can't do a ton of tests and stuff on them. But we're going to talk about this glove. And a different video, we're going to talk about the 4-roll Pro, which they also came out with. So we'll talk about those in a different video. So watch that one if you want that one. This one is specifically of this new line, which is the LX Pro, and which is this glove specifically. And we'll kind of compare it to some of the Pro stock gloves I have and some thoughts with that. We'll also be doing the standardized sizing test on this with the hands. So we'll give you an idea of how that fits compared to some other models. But before we begin all that, if you're in the United States and you're looking to purchase hockey equipment, check out the link in the description to Pure Hockey. Clicking that link, making a purchase gives me a kickback, so I keep making videos and making more content. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel, check out links to Patreon and Buy Me Coffee. Everything through there comes back into the channel, so I keep making more videos and doing more reviews and making more content. So we're going to jump into Warrior 4-roll history really quickly, because this line, the Alpha line, kind of formed into a 4-roll, but then now it's this. So a long time ago, Warrior bought a company called Mia. Mia made 4-roll gloves, and they had a really famous looking glove. I can't remember if it was called a franchise or not. Regardless, Warrior bought them and created the franchise. This glove is basically a Warrior franchise. This is a Pro stock glove. It says AX1, ignore it. Warrior franchises had, you can tell by how this index finger piece is, whereas the actual AX1s were more close to this one. Originally, they were made in Canada. Eventually, this one, they were made overseas. They were a very famous glove, 4-roll, as you can see, very traditional style, everything. They had a ton of different cuff options, everything. Warrior was basically the king of custom gloves back then. Same with Eagle, but Warrior was like just a different type, and it was more evident in the NHL and stuff like that. After the franchise, which is what this one was, they moved production overseas for retail and for, I think, for Pro. Anyways, then they went to the AX1. I don't have an AX1 example because I never bought the AX1, but that was the logo, just to give you an idea. And then after that, they went to the Alpha line, they first did the QX, which was a super soft glove, super comfortable. I was one of the Warrior VIPs for that. I got the glove to do a review on it and stuff like that early, and I bashed it because the foam package on it was terrible and the protection was terrible, and they went for pure comfort, and they kind of missed the mark on protection, especially with like the gaps in the fingers. You could touch your fingers really easily, and there's like no protection. A stick would get in there. It was really bad. And then they came out with the DX, and I did a review of the DX. You can see it up over there. It was an excellent glove. It was basically the QX, but with better foam package and better protection, but it was a solid glove all around. Now Warrior's doing something different. The 4-roll glove, as you can see, this one is now called the 4-roll Pro, and the LX line, which is what this is something different altogether. While it's not a 4-roll anymore, it's more of like a vapor type. It's a kind of a hybrid. It's not super snug. It's more of kind of an in-between. While the Covert QR10s aren't super snug anymore, or at least the one I used wasn't, this one isn't super snug, and it's kind of supposed to be that gap between the anatomical and the 4-roll. Regardless, here we are. This is an interesting glove, and we'll just jump into it. One thing that is really confusing about the LX Pro compared to previous Warrior gloves, previously the Pro line was actually the step down from the top, and so it was like QR or QRL, QR Edge, and then QR Pro was the one below. Same with QX. QX was the top, QX Pro was the one below. Warrior switched that up. Now the Pro is the top. I have a feeling it's because all the companies have kind of done that. Bauer at one point, the 2S Pros were the top line, and the Warriors were the step down. And then CCM now, all the Pros is the top line of everything. FT4 Pro for the skates, sticks. I think Warrior honestly copied that direction everyone's going in, where the Pro is now the top line. Same with their sticks. The LX Pro is the top one. So confusing, and I think the LX20 is like the next one. It's confusing, but that's what it is. So just want to call that out. Looking at the whole thing, it's very typical Warrior, in my opinion, in terms of like what they've been doing for the retail. They have the TPU on the cuff, as well as the pinky and index finger right here. And then you have your like nylons, so like the Pro level nylons and Pro not, and then just the other stuff. And just for a straight up comparison, this is a Pro stock glove, and you can see how it does have that different nylons that you can see on here. So very similar in that regards. It's just the Pro stuff generally doesn't have the TPU. So you can see it right there, but that's it. But it's not like that TPU where it's the textured stuff. as you can see right here. So just slightly different in that sense, but still like quality materials and everything on there. The brakes, as you can see, you actually only have 4 pieces, but it's not a 4-roll anymore, but still very squared off, everything like that. Thumb piece, kind of more anatomical than a like kind of a standard one. As you can see, the difference between like a standard 4-roll and what this is. So a bit nicer in that regard. And then you do have that traditional warrior palm where they put the terrible palm right here, which is not very comfortable. It's kind of a gray nash, and it looks like it's a sure grip, but it's not. It's just like printed texture, and it's useless. And you have your textured, as you can see, Pro Palm Plus here. And you on the coverts, this wraps around, but this one doesn't. And it's just like a black nash. Both of these materials feel super similar if they're not identical, but this one does have that weird texture to it. Honestly, it's kind of useless in my sense why Warrior keeps doing this. The palms that they use on their pro stuff is so much nicer. Now it does wear faster, as you can see. That's my bottom hand, and that's the wear, but it's so much softer, so much more comfortable. And even this, which is much more durable than what this stuff is a lot more soft and comfortable. So I'm kind of, again, disappointed with Warrior going down this route because you don't need this right now. For the grip test, we're going back to that Bauer glove, and grip's fine, slides fine, no issues, feels good. You can't really feel any of the texture when you're actually using this glove at all on the, like from the glove on the stick. You definitely have too many layers. You basically have this layer and then the layer underneath, so you can't really feel that texture at all, but it's fine. Warrior does have a cool thing for the specs on this where it is a mesh gusset, so you can breathe pretty well. There's no other glove right now on the retail market that has this, and it was a pretty popular option on Warriors. As you can see, Zetterberg used it on his pro stock gloves. So I'm a kind of a fan that this still exists there. It just gives you another option out there. So one thing I want to mention about this is I mentioned the mesh gussets are usually good for airflow and allowing air on the ice to go through your fingers more. The one thing I want to call out with this glove though is when I do videos like this, generally speaking, my hands aren't that hot when I'm wearing the gloves. With this glove, when I had my hand in here and doing all this, my hand was kind of sweating and it did feel really warm inside this glove. So I just want to call that out. I obviously can't say if this will affect how it is on ice, but generally speaking, it doesn't happen to a lot of the gloves I use when I'm doing videos and everything. With this glove, it definitely did happen. Really good index finger design right here in terms of protection. Foam, you have a piece of foam and then plastic insert, but the way it wraps does a really good job, and it's like one of the better companies, or it's pretty thick too, and it lines up really well. It's not just a little tiny piece right there, so props to them there. You do have your flex thumb, as you can see. It's just the 2-piece thumb, but it works pretty well. Warrior's been always pretty solid with this. It's not amazing, but it's comfortable and it works with the dexterity of the glove itself. And then as we get to that, for the hand closure, you can see pinky to index finger is pretty easy. So moving on the inside, Warrior does still use Polygiene, as you can see, but they no longer have their silver shield, which was like this stuff, which was super soft, super comfortable, super amazing material. People sought it out. Now it's just this kind of lime green liner that's slightly different color, as you can see, but it's still called their Wartech FNC now with Polygiene, and you can see the details on it. It's soft, it's comfortable. I don't know if it works better or not than this stuff, but it's fine. That's kind of what it is. And that's how thick the liner is in there. As you can, it's pretty decent. It's just a soft foam inside there, not like extra padding or anything, just a little bit more comfort through there. You can see the cuff too, how much it opens up and blooms out. And when we go look in here, you can see there is no spandex or anything in here allowing a flex cuff or anything, which the old Alphas did. So it's kind of locked in place there, but that will lead to a protection part in the future. We'll come back to that, as you can see, and all the way through right here. Onto the outside of the hand and palm, you see they have pretty solid pinky and outside hand finger protection. So now that's a foam with a plastic insert. I was telling Warrior to change this for years since the QRL. I said, you guys gotta change this. This is terrible. This is how it used to be, a really tiny piece of foam or plastic, which is what this one I think has plastic in it. It's just totally useless, totally awful. I was telling them they have to change it. You have to do something. It's like, you have to change it, you have to change it, you have to do something like this. Something's way better. They finally did it, and now they're advertising that as a thing. I told you this like 6 years ago. Now? 6 years. It's not hard. Anyways, it's a lot better than what it used to be, and it's a much more solid design there. So credit for Warrior in that regards. Now, one thing I do want to call out, because I think it's just kind of interesting in the design, you can see how the fingers look so square, but when you really flatten it out, they're not. It just, for some reason, they all look really square when you're holding them, which is kind of weird. Not a huge deal or anything, but I just wanted to call that out. Now, for the glove itself, I mentioned how it is a 4-piece glove, as you can see, but dexterity on this glove is very good. So the way that they did this all works really well. And it does work in conjunction with the flex thumb, as you can see. So when you close that pinky to thumb, it works quite well and no issues there. And you can see the flex on the hands, kind of the pieces here, the breaks in the foam kind of working with you. And it has that nice little added piece right there, just so sticks can't get in. Warrior has done a good job with 3-piece index and middle finger. As you can see, gaps are very minimal. There is a little gap right here, but it is a lot tighter in terms of construction and sewn than it was on the old like QX gloves, where you could literally touch your finger through there. There you can't. So this piece right here, you can kind of feel your knuckle, but it's going to be a lot tighter than what it was otherwise. I still think this piece, this one could be a little bit shorter. That could move up a little bit, and that one could be a little longer to kind of help with that movement, but it's not terrible, and it's a lot better than what Warrior has done in the past. Now, to really show off the glove flex, you can kind of fold it like this and see how the whole thing really moves and folds with it, and it does a pretty good job of being flexible with your hand and moving pretty good all around. So huge credit to Warrior for that. It's a well done design. Warrior also has done this pretty well in the past, and I covered it in the coverts with this little axi flex piece right here, but you can see the sloped cuff right there, and it does allow it to slide over pretty easy for backhand. So the backhand restriction isn't awful, even though the cuff restriction is actually pretty bad. It doesn't flare very far, and it's a really simple cuff, and honestly a kind of disappointing part, it does move on top of this pretty well, so that's good in that sense. The rest of this cuff is bad though, in terms of like, it doesn't flare enough, as you can see. Piece is really disappointed because it does get in the way, as you can see, whereas a better cuff design that has like a flex like this, you can see how that opens up and allows you to bend your wrist more. This one just gets in the way totally, and that one moves with you. Now, there is a simple fix to this glove, and all you really have to do is cut the seam right here to kind of separate these two, because there's like a stitch right in there. Hopefully you can see that. And if you cut that little stitch going all the way through, this will probably open up and open a bit more. I don't understand why that's not done just straight up. It's pretty disappointing to me. It would make this cuff better. But again, this cuff is pretty crap, to be honest. This is the real disappointing part of this glove, is this cuff and how like restrictive this is. I get like not doing super fancy cuffs like this on the retail market, because let's be real, this is a fancy cuff. But all companies have better cuff designs than this that aren't super restrictive. Like True's opens up like that, so it bends more, and the cuff is a bit more flexible. Bauer's opens up and the whole cuff flexes with your hand, like so it moves like that, right? So I get why like Warrior not having a flex in here is fine by me, because I'll cover that in a second. But down here, should change, because this part of the glove is super disappointing and just too restrictive compared to what it could be. And again, here's a Bauer glove, and just look how much more open that is. And it just flares, and it doesn't get in the way. And even this Bauer glove is considered too restrictive by people, and it just flares so much better. And this one is just too kind of tight here. I guess if you want a tight upper cuff, then it's not awful, but I think this could be way better than what it is. And if you look at a ton of the pros in the NHL wearing Warrior gloves, they're not wearing this style of cuff. It's all like a custom cuff, something like the short cuffs like this, or you can see like Spezza has crazy cuff that has a ton of movement in it, or they have gloves like this. Like Carlson is wearing an Alpha 4-roll glove with this internal flex cuff. And I get why Warrior's not doing this retail, because this is another company's design, but you can do something better than what this cuff is, and that's disappointing to me. Even putting like the original QRL cuff down here would be better than what this is, and that's, again, just pretty disappointing in that sense. Protection on this glove is actually pretty solid, and I don't say actually as in I'm surprised. It's just they have a few parts in here that I'm really excited about and want to call out. One, the foam package on this is literally the same foam package that is on my Pro Stock gloves, and I don't know if it's all the way through, but right here it's definitely the same. So you have a softer foam, as you can see, for density, stiffer foam right up there. It's a really stiff, dense foam, and then you have a plastic insert at the top, and that feels like it's pretty much the same all the way through, and it's honestly pretty good. Warrior calls it their impacts, and it feels pretty solid for protection tests all the way around, and does pretty good. Now, the thing I wanted to call out is, because there's no spandex back here, Best retail cuff protection there is. Nothing else is better than this on the retail that I have tested so far. So how that's done, you have this foam in here that's pretty thick and soft and comfortable. And then you have that pretty stiff upper foam. Like this part, you can flex this, but it is pretty thick and padded all the way through. As you can see, there's no plastic insert, but it is pretty thick. Then you have this piece right here. So there's no spandex, and you have extra foam here. So you basically have 3 layers of foam padding through that cuff, and that is a huge props to Warrior. Great protection through that all the way through. Better than any retail glove I put on recently, so credit to Warrior for that. The other spot too is right here is really good as well. And I've had some issues with some retail gloves recently, Sherwood and a True One, where there's kind of this a little plastic part. The thumb piece goes like too much into your hand and into your thumb, and it really jams in there. Nothing like that on Warrior. And while you can see the edge while I push in there, it's kind of like pushing out of that kind of thumb plastic, I'm trying to get on camera, sorry, that thumb plastic like shell. It doesn't get in the way, or the foam padding right here does a good enough job that it's protective, more protective than most other gloves on the market. If you're in Canada and you're looking to buy hockey equipment anyways, check out the links in the description to Hockey Supremacy. Clicking that link, making a purchase gives me a kickback. That way I help support the channel and I keep making real reviews and making more content. Before I jump into the standardized fit, this is a 14-inch glove. As you can see in here, 14. And when I put it on, my fingers are like just at the end, but not blowing past the end. This one honestly fits like a 15-inch glove from my feeling right now. We'll put the standardized hands in here to give you an idea, but I just want to call that out right away. So for the standardized fit, you can see that's the big hand, which is closest to mine. And you put it in and the hand doesn't go past this at all. It's like right on the end. All the way through, you have a little bit of gap right here, but it's right at the end there and there, but not blown by. And again, I use a 15 Bauer CCM retail glove, not Nexus or the 4-roll, but 15 Supreme Vapor. Used to use a 15 Covert 4-roll, blow through the 14 Covert Pro socks I have for length. This one is right at the end of a 14, so definitely fits bigger than the other 15s I mentioned. And here is the small hand, as you can see in there, and I have to push inwards to get where the actual finger is, and again push inwards, it's in there, push inwards, it's in there. So yeah, so there's the spot, there is the spot, you can see that gap, that's basically it. And then same thing right there, right? So in there. So 14, definitely not coming out the end. So if it's a little bit bigger than other companies' 14s. So for glove snugness, now Supremes are very snug. This one is not crazy snug. This is a 15 though, and it's honestly like slightly more snug than a 15 Supreme. So it's not crazy snug, but it is a snug fitting glove. Very solid glove overall. Protection's pretty good from everything. Best cuff I've used. I want to reiterate that again. Worst cuff in terms of mobility I use. Those don't correlate though, because you can do a ton of stuff here in the shape of this to make that better while keeping this cuff protection. Just want to call it out. Great dexterity, great mobility, everything like that. Solid thumb, everything's decent there. Palm's kind of boring and bland. It's overall pretty decent, and one of the gloves I would recommend to people to try on and see where it is. I'm glad they finally fixed the Pinkie issues, which I've been calling out for 6 years. Good that they finally got on that. But the rest of it, again, you could do small things, like a nicer palm and a better open cuff, and this would be a phenomenal glove and one of the easiest recommends, but it's just not quite there. But they're getting better, and huge props to Warrior for making a pretty solid deviated glove from their normal lines. So if you end up buying these gloves because of this video or it was helpful, please reach out to Warrior on social media, let them know. I used to be a Warrior VIP and got their stuff to test and review and do content on, and then I bashed a pair of their gloves because they were crap. Didn't get them anymore, and then the next gloves fixed all the issues I had with them. So yeah, so if this was helpful, reach out to Warrior. Let them know my video was helpful. It'd be greatly appreciated on my end. If you want to support the channel and live in the United States or Canada, check out the links in the description to Hockey Supremacy and Pure Hockey. In Canada, clicking the link to Hockey Supremacy and making a purchase gives me a kickback. In the US, clicking the link to Pure Hockey and making a purchase gives me a kickback as well. Everything through those links comes right back into the channel, so I keep making real reviews and more content.
You're watching HockeyReviews.ca.